One common question people have is about what muscle is working when they're doing a particular movement. So, what I want to do in this video is just lay the groundwork for understanding that, and this will be sort of a series of videos that we'll have. So, I'll start with a very simple movement, just a flexion and extension of the elbow, and then we'll move on to doing more complex movements until you can sort of identify what muscles are working on your own. So I want to do these very quickly. So I'm going to start right here. What I have is just a biceps, and the biceps is here. And what you're looking at is, here's the bone of the upper arm and a very rudimentary scapula. This is supposed to be the socket. It's just a hole drawn into the scapula. It's not, don't use this to study for your anatomy exam. What I want you to look at are these. So these are the tendons here, and they attach to the scapula on the biceps, and then they also attach to the lower arm through this tendon. So what I have this arrow signifying is that the first concept to understand is that muscles only pull on a joint. So it's going to pull in this direction, and then that's going to literally pull on this bone, and that's where you get that angle that's created by the pull. So muscles only work in one direction. That's the important thing. So first, let's just look at what's happening. Think of the biceps there as a literal series of strings pulling on that tendon. So I'm just going to run through this very quickly. Okay, so let's just go through back and forth. I'm just kind of moving through it. And do you see that how as it shortens and bunches up, it's flexing and quite literally just pulling on that tendon. Okay, so now that we understand that, it's only pulling in that direction. Now the elbow is flexed. So gravity can just help this drop down. Everything can kind of go passive and the arm will drop. But if you're actively moving against a resistance, which is the second thing I want you to understand, here we'd be moving against a resistance in this direction. Doesn't matter if it's gravity or a band or anything, against a resistance in that direction. So let's add in the triceps. So if we add in a triceps here, now we can see that when we're moving against resistance in this direction, the triceps are going to have to work. Or if we're just trying to accelerate the arm in that direction beyond what we could do with just gravity. And there's a certain muscle tone. We don't need to get into those details so much. So let's just look at how the triceps, which is attached to the scapula here. This is more rudimentary because the triceps is a little bit more complicated, and we didn't need to get into the detail of the drawing. But for basic purposes, attaches the scapula, attaches to the lower arm through a tendon under here. And you're going to see that as we scroll through. So now it's working to extend the arm, okay? And that's important to know. So there's a muscle on each side of the joint. They each only work really in one direction. So the first thing to notice is what joint is moving. Here, it's the elbow joint. So which joint is moving? And then what direction is the force working against? And you'll notice that in this case, when it's going up relative to the picture, but when it's making us work through flexion, the muscle on this side of the joint has to work, and in the other direction, the muscle on that side. And once you understand that muscles can only pull, and that they're going to pull on the bone that's moving through space, they're going to pull on the bone that's moving through space, which is our lower arm bones, you'll start to have some groundwork for identifying which muscle's working. And you don't have to know the names of all the muscles necessarily. It can help, but what you really want is to at least be able to reference it. And if you look up a chart of basic overview of gross anatomy, you can pretty easily identify what muscles are working. And that's all most people want, is some gross anatomy. They don't care about the small, tiny muscles that are incidentally working. They're going to work no matter what. So I'm just going to do a video of the bicep and tricep both alternating and just watch how they each pull in their respective direction. And as one pulls, the other one lengthens. So that's going to be the groundwork for the first part. We'll start to apply this to more complex movements in future videos.